All right, so we're all here because, well, there's too many certifications and not all of them are equal. Just so everyone knows, the way I run this presentation is you can ask questions throughout. You don't have to wait to the end. If there's something that popped up in the top of your mind, feel free to interject and interrupt me because I rather I don't want to say solve your question, try to answer your question at that point, rather than wait to the end and try to remember what the question's about. As well. I actually made a recent transition into marketing services, so I'm learning Marketing Cloud and Partner and all that other fun stuff. But I know Salesforce very well in and out, and I still utilize it every day. I am a Salesforce MVP. I run the Milwaukee Dev group. I also run the Milwaukee Salesforce Saturday group, and I also I'm part of the Salesforce credentialing ambassador team. So what that means is that I help verify all those tests that you take are accurate. Not all the tests. There's only certain ones that I help out on. I have a deep understanding of how the certifications are written and all that process that goes behind them. So one of the reasons why I put this together is because people just go and get certifications. There's a lot of cheating that goes out there that I'm not really a big fan of, but I just would like to get people set up on the right path here and figure out where they're going. If you want to reach me on Twitter, that's my handle there. And I also have a YouTube channel where I post daily admin shorts, which means that it's a 60-second lesser clip on an admin tip for that particular day to learn how to do something. So if you're trying to learn Salesforce, I produce those every day so you can get a quick 60-second or less idea on how to become an admin. Alrighty. So right now, there's over 40 certifications, which is a lot. Put that in context. I have half of them, and I still feel overwhelmed with a lot of them. So the question is, which ones should you get, and do you need them? The answer is, you don't need all of them. And should you get them? The answer is definitely yes. But when it makes sense. And that seems contradictory to a lot of people, but there is some guidance within the exam that basically says, hey, who should take this test? And each certification varies a little bit. And one of the reasons why I see a lot of people struggle with like Salesforce Administrator is they've gone through the whole trail mix, but they don't have any experience. So they're trying to take a test with no experience. Salesforce flat out calls and says like you should have at least 6 or more months of experience of being an admin. So that is hard to come by sometimes if you're not a current admin. So, but I also don't like the idea of people just going and getting a certification with no experience, not understanding how the tool works. A lot of the questions you get are based off of people like me who have the experience. So we're drawing off our experiences to build those questions. So if you haven't been exposed to a lot of different types of things, the questions are only going to be harder for yourself. Purpose of the exam, they're also just like recommending the training documentation. So like do the trail mixes. No, that's a great start, but also try to get some training. Did you do pre-work? A lot of people can they go through the trail mixes. They do all maybe that they'll go to a focus and forest. They'll do some other studying as well. But do you have that baseline experience? Do you have that recommended experience is the key factor there? And that's where I see people struggle most to gain. And also when they actually take the test, the application falls apart because you haven't been exposed to all these different types of scenarios that a typical admin would have. So yeah, do your trailhead stuff there. And then I've seen a lot of people when you take it, hold on a second here. When they do take it, they have little or no experience. Like I said, trail is good, but it doesn't give you that real life experience. I've seen people pass it with no experience, but in my opinion, you're only hurting yourself because now once you have that certification, most people are making the assumption that you have that knowledge that's on the certification. And it's not really helping you because when you actually go to your interview and you have that, when they ask you the questions, they're making that assumption that for the admin, 68% of what's on the admin test. So they're going to ask you some basic things. And if you can't answer them, you're only hurting yourself because you haven't been exposed to them. Like I said, most of the questions on the test are scenario based. So you have a limited reps at doing things. So the more reps you get at building things out in Salesforce, the better you're going to be prepared for the test. And if you are looking, for a job or Most companies are looking for experience in their certifications. Most care more about your experience than your certifications, because the experience is going to tell you that that's your exposure, and that's something that can't be easily attained. That's something you have to work at. Whereas certifications, you can, like I said, you can do a lot of studying and pass the test, but the application falls through for a lot of people because they just don't have that experience of actually making a report, making a field, making a custom object, and understand why they did those things. So that's the reason why I say, if it says 6 months, try to get yourself 6 months of experience. And with that, how do you get experience? Which is the number one thing. Volunteer, nonprofits are always looking for help. You can try to find a company that's willing to train. You find one of those entry level companies. If you're going to do that, look around, see, do they have an experienced team? And then also ask what kind of things you're going to be doing to make sure that if you're not just going to be building reports. You may start off building reports, but make it known that you want to keep growing. You just don't want to be the report builder or the ticket taker to create users. Another great way to gain some experience is to go out to the community and start answering questions. Tons of people have questions all the time, and maybe you don't actually answer the questions, but you read the questions. This is a way to kind of get some repetitions at things, because these are people's issues. These are real life issues that people are having. You may not have the answer, but you could also read what other people are proposing to get a feel for what those answers should be. And once you do get that job, be a champion of the product, even if you only do one session like report. So if you really want to get into it, champion the product, be the go-to person, even like I said, if it's for one thing, and then just keep growing your skill set there to get yourself more experience and be prepared for it. So what certs to get? Again, it's what makes sense. I'm not saying you have to get everyone, and I'm not saying that you shouldn't get them. But if you want to be a Salesforce, if you're going to be a Salesforce admin, don't go after Marketing Cloud certifications unless it makes sense to do those things. If your org doesn't have Marketing Cloud, it doesn't really make much sense to be going after Marketing Cloud certifications unless you have every other one. You just want to keep growing your certification list, then sure. But if you're just trying to grow your skill set as an admin, focus on the ones that make sense. Baby steps. So start off slow. If you're an admin organization, I would start off the Salesforce administrator. This is basically the gatekeeper for most of your certifications out there. There is the Salesforce associate. I'm not the biggest fan of that one. It doesn't really, in my opinion, prepare you for Salesforce. It's a great intro to Salesforce, but it's more about how to be a Salesforce person than actual how Salesforce works. So it's a cheaper cert. It's you pay for it once and you can keep taking it until you pass it. But it's not one that if somebody came to me like, I'm a certified associate, I'm like, that's great. What are your other certifications? It doesn't mean much to most companies because it's not it's a very entry level certification, and it doesn't really establish that you know much about Salesforce other than how to use the community, in my opinion. Other people may vary, but that's just my gist of that certification. So if you're an admin, there are some that I say, yes, you need to go get after these because it makes perfect sense. So if you're going to be an administrator, the admin cert is a yes automatically. It's a core cert, but get it once you get some of that experience. Don't go try to get the admin and then become an admin. Like I said, that experience gap is where a lot of people falters because they don't have that experience, and companies see right through yes, you have the certification, but you don't have the experience. I think App Builder is another great one. It teaches you how to do a lot of the core functionality, how to build properly. And then business analysts, I would say yes to. Most admins end up dealing with a lot of business requirements that aren't necessarily part of your day-to-day admin skill set. So that's just a good one just to understand how to navigate those waters, because sometimes you're the core admin, you're the only admin, and you have to be the admin and the business analyst to make sure everything that you're doing makes sense. Advanced admin, it's one of those ones that I could take it or leave it. If you have it, great. If you got a lot of your other ones, you want to keep growing the certifications, I say yes, advanced admin can be a great one. It's a good one, but it's not like a necessity to have. If you have admin, if you have app builder, I think for the most part, you could probably take advanced admin and not do too much with it, but it's not going to be the one that's going to make or break you. And then also like Sales Cloud, Service Cloud, Experience Cloud. If you're utilizing those clouds, and most likely if you're an admin, you're utilizing sales or service, go ahead and go after them. Studying for those certifications will be great to help you prepare for your org and understand all the different products and what you should use when and where. But also make sure you get some experience actually using those tools, so you actually understand what a assignment rule can do, what are the different types of things that you do in the different clouds. So make sure that if you're going to use Omni Studio, you understand what not Omni Studio, Omni channel, and make sure it makes sense to utilize. If you're going to be using sites, make sure you understand how all your Experience Cloud sites will work. So that's, if you're admin, I think you need those 3 ones. You don't need them automatically. This isn't like, hey, you get this in your first week. This is most likely like 3 years worth of getting certifications, not just something you happen to get overnight. It's something you're going to have to build to. So don't think this is like, if you're admin, I have to have all these by the end of the week. It's you just work on them as you become the admin. And the way I would do them, I would do admin, business analyst, and then app builder. That's the route I would go, and then sprinkle the other ones in after the fact if they make sense for you and your certification journey. If you're a business analyst, admin and BA makes sense because those are the core ones. You can't actually take business analyst without admin. It's the reason why it's included in the list. If it was up to me, I would say business analyst wouldn't require admin because I don't think it's a core. I don't think you need to do that. But Salesforce deemed that necessary. So in order to get the BA, you do have to have the admin certification first. But all the other certifications that are out there, if you're a BA, those are the only ones that you really need. Now, don't get me wrong, if you're a BA and you're doing work in Sales Cloud, learning more about Sales Cloud is only going to help you on your journey, but it's not something I would say you have to get right out the gate. All right, so if you're a dev, app builder and dev one are the definite yes. I also recommend admin mainly because there's a lot of automation that happens in the dev's world, especially with flows, and flows are the main one there. But because so much of it is intertwined, I'd say go ahead and get that one too. It's just going to help you be a more successful dev, and you can understand what's going on both sides of the house there. So you can be you can do your code, and you can also understand what your admins are doing, or you can also utilize the admin tools like flows to build out a process. Flow is getting very close to types of development, so I'm going to help you out there. Advanced admin, I'm going to say no, you don't need to get that one. I mean, you could do it if you really want to. Salesman Service and Experience Cloud, yes. I see devs getting Experience Cloud a lot just because they get pulled a lot into building sites, because a lot of those are custom. Understanding how Experience Cloud works is only going to help you in that matter. And then Dev 2, it's one of those future ones. It's when you first become a developer, you don't need to get Dev 2. Once you've been in the ecosystem, you've done your due diligence, you gained the experience, and then go after Dev 2. Remember, Dev 2, it's a test, and you also have to complete a trailhead module to gain that one. So make sure that you have all your ducks in a row to do that. If you do go after Dev 2, I recommend doing the module first because it's only prepare you for your test. If you're a marketer, depending on which marketing tool you're using, typically you only use one. So if you're using Marketing Cloud, Email Specialist, Marketing Cloud Admin, yes, go for it. If you're using Pardot, use Pardot Specialist. I do recommend that if you're a marketer, getting admin is going to help. Unless you have a strong admin team, then maybe it's not really necessary as much. But if you're the sole person doing all these things, I would say make sure you have admin. For the most part, Marketing Cloud and Pardot are both tied to Salesforceorg. So understand where your data is coming from. So understand that data model, how that's set up. Admin's going to help you understand the core model for your accounts and contacts and leads. So understand how that stuff works. It's only going to help you be more successful in your marketing journeys. The 2 consultant ones, I would say most marketers are totally fine having Email Specialist and Marketing Cloud Admin or just Product Specialist. They teach you the core concepts. The other 2, if you want to gain them, get them once you have experience, go for it. but it's not like something I would say you necessarily have to have. If you're an architect, just get them all. It's pretty simple. If you want to be an architect, there are two different paths. There's the application, and then there's the systems architect, and they're all listed on here. But if you only want one side of the architect, you can get data sharing, data architect sharing and visibility, Dev1 app builder. That gets you your application, and then identity and access. There's one on the page here that you can't see, but development life cycle, identity and access, and Dev1, and then there's a but get that gets you the system architect. I'm totally fine completing both sides of the journey of the pyramid. I would just recommend, if you're going to do it, do one side first and then do the other side. Don't try to go pick and choose between the both. Complete one side, get your application architect, and complete the other side, get your system, or vice versa, whichever way you want to do. But just pick a side and go down that journey first, and then go down the other side if you need be. All right, and if you're a consultant, it's a combination of all the ones. Basically, it's get the ones that are based to your job and role. If you're someone who just does platform work, make sure and it's in Sales Cloud, make sure you get your admin, your Sales Cloud and Service Cloud, whichever cloud you're going to be working in, make sure you get those certifications, because that's only going to help you along the way. Now, I didn't cover all the certifications. And once again, it's kind of the common sense, what makes sense. So if you're utilizing CPQ, I strongly recommend getting, working the system, learning CPQ, and then going and get your CPQ specialist. That is not one that if you just study Trailhead, you're going to be able to pass. It's one you need real life experience to do that one. Field service, Omni Studio, nonprofit, education, Java, Heroku, all those are other certifications that you don't need to get unless you're utilizing those types of tools. So if you're not in a nonprofit sector, it doesn't really make sense for you to go after nonprofit unless you are in that sector. If you're not in education, doesn't make sense for you education. If you're not using Java for your new things, if you're not using Heroku, it doesn't really make much sense to get those certifications unless you're utilizing them. So like I said, do you have to get them all? No. Again, what makes sense for you and your role and where do you want to go? So part of it is planning your certification journey. If you're an admin, but you want to become a consultant, you typically need to get your admin, and then your sales service and Experience Cloud certifications. Those are all going to help you along your journey there. These certifications are meant to show that you're proficient in the area. If you only learn the tool to get the certification, never gain the experience, it's only going to be harder for you when you actually have to try to call on your so-called experience to build out those applications. All right. So that's what I have there. Any questions around any of that stuff? I saw one heading on. I don't know what anybody else is doing because we're all on mute with the cameras off. So you can use the chat functionality if you want to ask questions or.
Yeah, I have a question. Do you know of any live classes that are offered because for me, the biggest challenge I've found in the Salesforce education is most of the stuff is like pre-recorded stuff you can purchase on Udemy or whatever. But if you want a live class where you can ask questions from the teacher, I have a hard time finding ones for any of these. I mean, Salesforce admin may have some options, but as you go above the ladder, there's less and less classes available.
The first one is the certification days. That's because this is free. So they have sorry about this. They have admin classes, they have advanced admin, they have marketing cloud, email specialist, app builder, dev, service cloud, and they have sales as well. They sprinkle some other ones in there every now and then. But live classes, if you actually want to do them, there is a area to do that. Salesforce does offer one, but you have to pay for them, and they're not cheap by any means. I'm trying to remember where they're located in here. All right, so one thing I know you can do is I'm just going to cheat and go to one of these here. Go to the exam guides. In the exam guides, they actually point to, once it loads, there are some, are you able to see my screen, by the way? In the exam guide, they'll tell you training references. These right here are live classes. And I'm just going here to get to the page. and I don't want to log in. But there's different ones in here, and you can register for the class, but they have costs associated with them. I'm like, this one's $900. But this is with a live proctor, and they're gonna walk through the content where you can ask questions and that type of thing. So
is that a 1 day class? The first one on the top, February 14 to.
yep, this looks like it's a 1 day class.
Oh, gosh.
Some are longer, some are shorter, and you pay attention to what they're doing, because some of them read the whole thing. Sometimes they tell you like they need to have this many. You have to have this done first. But I would, if you wanted to go down this route, you can go ahead and go down this route. Admin is one of those ones where I would say, I don't know if it's worth the money to do these. I mean, if you want to, by all means, there's tons of other resources out there for admin that you can probably gain knowledge. But if you're doing field service or CPQ or even sales and service, the content that they're making here is great content, and it's going to help you prepare for those tests. A lot of times they do recommend that you have some of that experience in the field experience of doing that job first, because some of the things that they talk about is all about the doing. The why is up to you to kind of put together, and it's not always explicit of why you're doing the things. You just, oh, cool. I created a lead assignment role, and you're like, I don't know what this is for, because the why isn't always there. I'm not saying the training covers that or doesn't cover that, but I noticed a lot of times when I've done some of those trainings, the why is missing of why you're doing the step. You're just doing the step. So if you're doing those classes, ask why, because that can help bridge those gaps. But yeah, for admin, the certification days is a great. It's free, so that's the other thing, and it's being run by some of the same people that actually doing those other trainings. But yeah, if you're looking to get these, I'd recommend, if you're in the U.S. here, these two are the ones who are more likely for us. But it's not a short session. You're gonna learn a lot, and they're just there to do that. And I believe that is an open forum chat, so you can ask questions in the chat, and then they'll potentially answer them. And one of the other things I will point out with this is that if you go through these classes, they give you a code at the end to get a discount off of your test. I've seen it anywhere from $60 off to $140 off. So it's not a bad thing to attend those classes if you're planning on taking those certs, to get that voucher to reduce the cost of your exam.
Yeah, that's a great idea. Another thing is I've been having a tough time finding a study group. There are older posts on the trailhead, but like there's one this lady had posted for study groups back in 2019. I replied to her, but I haven't. She didn't never responded back. I was curious.
Yeah. Well, the key thing here is it looks like there are some out there. Pay attention to when they're less active.
Oh, I see.
But some of them are private, so you may have to ask access to. Some of them are public, which means you can just join. But yeah, study groups in here are great. If you're on Twitter, pay attention. You can search that as well. Where are you located?
I'm in California.
Yeah, so California we're in California.
I'm in Orange County, Irvine to be exact.
Okay. Yeah, I think there's also a few user groups down there.
There's one group, but they're very advanced. Like I went to and they were talking about like architect stuff, and I'm just like trying to get my admin.
Yeah, for that I mean, you can go to the group, ask if there's any, ask the group leaders if there's any groups or that they know of. Also, don't be afraid to start your own group, because you can request a new group if you want, and you can do that on your own. But I would recommend trying to join one of these as well.
How do you form your own group?
I know you said you're Orange County, but I know the San Francisco groups, they go anywhere from basic to advanced. So one thing to ask the community, if you can reach out to that community group leader, say, hey, your session on Bunch Triple Go is great, but can you do some more basic types of training? Because just because the group leaders events wants to talk about that thing doesn't necessarily mean that all the members are at that level. And being a group leader myself, I totally understand that, and I always try to keep things basic. And if I know that we're going to go off on the deep end, I make it known that, hey, this is going to be for more advanced users. Everyone's welcome to join, but don't be surprised if you get lost.
I see. Yeah, I'm trying to find, there's one post I found from, I'll try to put it, I'm going to put it in the chat, where this lady is telling people to complete all these Trailhead modules, and then they can join a study group. It's from 2019. It made sense because she's asking them to, she wants them to basically know the basics before coming into the group.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm not sure if it's still available. I tried to message her, but I didn't receive anything back. But I may use the same, if I were going to create my own study group, I may use the same idea of having because I don't want people, like basically, right, I want people to have at least studied the material before joining a study group to know a basic idea of everything. I may just use her modules and request that. I don't know if I can do that.
I mean, one thing to note is that for every certification, there is a trail mix set up for that one. And yeah, this is the one for the admin. It's got a ton of stuff in there. And it looks like she cherry picked a lot of the ones out of probably this tier for that. They at least have the baseline. But depending on the certification, depending on what you're doing, that's always helpful. Not to push my content or anything, but if you are looking to study for admin, I do actually have a admin prep course and on my stuff here. So if you want to listen to it, and you can always message within the videos, and I will be happy to respond to you as well.
Okay, that sounds good. Yeah, I took the test, and the part that I did really bad on was this sales and marketing. Sales and marketing part. So I'm trying to find like a project that I can work on. That way I could not just memorize terms, but actually like put together a sales process and link it to a page layout, and then link that to what do you call the record type,
Mm-hmm.
put the whole thing together. That way it just really sinks in my mind. So I've been studying that. That was the section I did the worst on the test. Any idea for any like question type projects that could help with that to ignite?
A lot of it's just like think about why you need a different sales process, and a lot of times sales process is dependent on. I always like to use the example of I have two different product lines, and product line A follows this particular course of steps, and product line B is shorter and only requires 3 steps. So that's the biggest use case. And then so with the memory sales process is only dictating those stage values for the opportunity, and then the record type is going to dictate potential page layout and any of the other picklist fields. So sometimes the record types are the same for both sales processes. Sometimes they're different. A lot of times I like to keep them separate just because it makes more sense that way. But just remember that sales process is there to drive. If you're going to use sales processes, it's because you have 2 distinct sales processes set up that need to be driven. If they have the same sales process, but you're using different record types, that means you probably capture different types of data for those. So your sales process is the same. You follow the same linear path, but what you do during the process differs. So you have different record types to gather different fields and information depending on what stage you're in.
Okay. And then there's some things in there that, like, let's say forecasting or splits, or do they test on those things as well, or is it mainly just a process?
Not so much in admin. If you're doing Sales Cloud, that's definitely on the test. For the most part, with forecasting, you just have to know that it exists and have a basic understanding of what it's there for. They may go into the different forecast category. Yeah, they go into different forecast categories. So like knowing what the pipeline, best fit, all those. That's you have to know what some of those are and how those tie back to the stages.
I see. Okay. Thank you.
But yeah, for the most part, forecasting is all on Sales Cloud. There's a very, you have to remember, admin is covering everything underneath the sun, not just like how to be an admin. So it's admin's I would say it's one of the tougher ones out there because it's the breadth of it. Once you get admin, when you do like sales or servicing or the other ones, it's a lot more narrow. So you get to the depth of those. So admin's very wide, all the other ones are very deep. So it's one of those admin's hard because you have to know a lot of different things, but you don't have to know them. You have to know them well enough, but you don't have to know them inside and out.
I see. Okay. Thank you.
Yep. Any other questions?
I have one question.
Go ahead, Jermaine.
Okay, so how many certifications you think, what's the most that you think is needed for like an admin?
All right. So for that, if you're just being an admin in your org, I would say you'd want probably 3, which would be the admin, app builder, and business analyst is what I would recommend. And
Okay, I got 2 of those. I don't have the business analyst one.
And that's one of those ones that really depends on your role in the company.
Right.
If you're in a big team, probably not so much. But if you're like a solo admin, business analyst is great because you have to take a lot of time to get a lot of those requests. And you have to process them and figure out what needs to happen, and what makes the most sense. But if you're part of a larger group, probably doesn't apply so much. And maybe you want to focus on some of the other ones like advanced admin or sales or service or experience.
Well, I do have the Sales Cloud.
Okay. Yeah. So like for most admins,
right.
Like for most people, most admins, that would be their core of what they would have. I don't think you need to get more unless you really want to go get more.
Right.
Some people love getting them. Some people hate going after them. That's that type of relationship. It also, like I said, depends on where you want to go and where your company's going, and what you want to do that. So like you have sales. And if you're implementing Service Cloud, you may want to at least start looking into Service Cloud to understand what all the functions that it can do, so that you're prepared for those types of requests.
Okay.
So, and like if you're just a solo admin, I would say if you have app builder, admin, and sales, you have a lot of the core ones there. Realistically, you could probably do advanced admin. Like I said, it's one of those ones that advanced admin, I don't think it's the greatest one out there. It's very similar to Sales Cloud. So if you already have Sales Cloud, you probably have 70% of the content already done for that one. So if you wanted to knock another one out of the park, that's probably your next best option. Does that answer your question?
Yep.
Like I said, it really just depends on the size of your org and what you want to do. Being where you're at, I would say yes, but just remember, Salesforce keeps updating things, and sometimes you need to learn the new technologies and learn other ones to keep expanding.
Exactly.
I have another question. Any recommendations for, let's say, if somebody's studying for their admin and they want to try to get into like some internship or volunteer work? What is the best source to be able to find internship type opportunities while I'm studying for my exam, or even after I pass my certificate?
Because I did an internship, or not, well, volunteer work actually. Volunteer Match is one. Catch a Fire, I believe it is.
Yeah.
Is another one. Taproot is another one. So those are the 3.
The thing about volunteer work is that they suggest that the person should be really under somebody else's supervision who has their, like, they don't want you to like solo work on somebody's project when you don't have your certificate or experience. So I was looking for more like towards internship where there's, someone who's above you that you can ask questions from,
Yeah.
and that if they like you in 3 months, they can offer you a job, or they don't, but at least you get some experience.
Right. So yeah, that's just kind of being that job hunting type of deal. So a lot of those internships are in person. So just be mindful of that. So it's gonna be whatever's available in your area. Some do offer
Oh,
remote, but for the most
really?
part, internships are gonna be in an office per more or less, because no, they want to make sure that you're not lost.
Oh,
So remote internships don't typically happen very often, just because some like content's hard to convey over a meeting like this. So they prefer them to be in person. So you can look for jobs and look for internships. Some of them are paid, some of them aren't. But a lot of them are going to be helpful to that. I know a lot of the consulting companies out there do a lot of internships. So you can take a look at those. Nice thing about consulting companies is you get a lot of reps at a lot of different things.
so you say I should look into my immediate area. That would just like try to weed through LinkedIn in my area, or where do I go? Is there like, is that pretty much?
Yeah, I mean, LinkedIn, I don't know if you have any local job postings in your area. Also, I believe in the community, there are some groups for.
Well, another good way to get hands-on experience if you don't have like an internship or volunteering work is like take a Developerorg because it's free. And what you can do is you can build out on it. So like let's say I'm into sports. So I built a sports app, and then I created some objects like for league divisions, conferences, and all that stuff. And now I just built a report, and now I'm dealing with some flows in my particular app and stuff like that. So that's how you could also get good hands-on experience as well.
Yeah, I did that this week. I built out a Salesforceorg from a website I found that had some projects, and it was like a love it or list it type org, where it's like building it for a producer, and you have like one section that's like for the real estate side for people who are going for showings, and another side for like the renovation. And that was really cool. It really helped me. I actually didn't know if I would be able to do it, especially when I got to like a flow. But I kind of surprised myself because I was able to get it to work with some troubleshooting along the way, but eventually it worked.
Yeah.
Where did you find this project?
On Salesforce Anchor. I think the guy's name is Kyle Battle. He has like a few of them. Actually, he also has a sports app on there too for like an athletics department. But yeah, I started working on some of those to get some experience.
Okay.
Yeah, another good way to follow that same concept then, if you go over to the community here and you go to the feeds here, people have issues in here, and sometimes you can recreate their issue and then figure out how to solve it in your own Developerorg.
Thank you.
Yeah. And you can do that in Devorg. If you're in Salesforce, you have to do that in your own the playground orgs as well. Just a matter of what you want to do. Just remember, Devorgs they have less users in them, which doesn't really matter for most people because you're just doing for yourself. But yeah, all those are great suggestions. I built a Lego tracking app in one of my Devorgs because I'm a big Lego collector, so I was building apps in there to track which ones I have, so I don't buy duplicates of things. So yeah, it's a great tool to use that. And when my daughter was born, I built a diaper changer in there because you keep track of things. I built that in my in there and made it a mobile app, so I had custom actions that I could quickly track those things, so I could run reports. So when the doctor said, how many times did you do number 1 or number 2, I could say this is the numbers, and I had it all on my phone all ready to go. And just because I said click of a button on my phone every time we took care of it, so it was real easy to do those things. So yeah, that was a quick little app that I built and utilized it for the first 6 months, and then now I removed it because I don't need it anymore. But you can use it for any of those little life things that you want to make your life better. I remember when I first started, somebody said that they built their they planned their whole wedding on Salesforce. So they had all their vendors in there. They're doing all the email and notifications out of there and all that other fun stuff. So just remember, don't use it. Only use it for your personal use. Don't use it for businesses, because then Salesforce gets mad.
Okay. Great.
So if you're doing it for your own personal gain and learning and that type of thing, totally fine. If you're actually trying to run a business out of your Devorg, that's where they get mad and will try to come back and charge you for everything.
Yeah, I just want to say I appreciate what you said about getting the certifications to complement experience, because sometimes I feel a lot of confusion about, should I be going for more certifications? Do I even have enough time to like aggressively chase other certifications, or should I just go along with what I'm learning at the time?
Yeah, I mean,
Clarification.
that question is dependent on you. Do you have the bandwidth to do it? Because some certifications, if you do it every day, you may be able to not put a lot of effort into it. If it's something that you're trying to learn and maybe you don't have a lot of experience in it, the struggle is going to be real. It's going to take longer. It's going to take longer. And as a recommended approach, I think most certifications, they recommend at least 3 months of study. They recommend a time frame. They don't recommend how much time each day to do that. But I do training at my company, and when we have new people, I basically say you need to spend about 40 minutes a day on studying for at least 2 months. And that's like for the admin, because that's the one that most people start off with. I have noticed that if people are actively using the tool, so if they're using Sales Cloud every day, if they're using Service Cloud, or if they're building things with experience, or they're building those things, that the experience kicks in, because you have all the reputations of doing those things. The learning is a lot easier because you actually understand what you're doing. You have the real life application back to what you're doing. That time frame shrinks dramatically if you do it on a daily basis, when you actually decide to go for the certification. So if you are building every day and you do that for a period of time, then you decide to do it, your study time is going to be less. But you've essentially studied already by doing all the work ahead of time. So it's really that time commitment that you're able to make to it. And sometimes the certification may take you 3 months to get through all the content, because you only have a set period of time each week to give to it, so you can't dedicate a lot of time. But I do recommend not trying to spend it over long periods of time, because you have a habit of forgetting things that you've learned unless you're utilizing it every day.
Yeah, thanks. I was thinking about that when I started studying for the platform app builder. I had to take a break, and then when I came back, it was like I had to start all over again, because I felt like I like some of the topics, just I forgot them.
And remember, every release, Salesforce has the right to modify the content that they're testing on, because they're going to test you on whatever's most current. So sometimes things get removed, sometimes things added on. So if you are using any study resources, be mindful of the date it was created. Some content that was created 3 years ago for admin, probably not that helpful anymore. So how current the data, the content is that is being created for your studying, just be mindful of that, because as we know, Salesforce has 3 releases every year, and they're constantly changing things. That's why I say that 3 months, because it's about every release is about 3 months. Like I said, we meet. This is Milwaukee Salesforce Saturday. We meet the second Saturday of every month. If there's no other questions, comments, concerns, I will gladly release you all. And thank you for coming.